So this is something, I think these two pieces go together because I was the one who found this. They certainly go together. We found this in Red Hill Creek this season. So this is obviously a mouthpiece that one would breathe through. And this is pressurized tank, I would guess, of air. Exactly what it is and why somebody would be using it, some sort of scuba equipment, I have no earthly idea, but it was interesting enough for us to save. Okay, I like to tell people that at festivals, when we take this stuff out, that we've actually found 500,000 pounds of stuff, but they wouldn't let us bring it all, so we just bring the really interesting things. This is a puppet head from an Indonesian puppet. We're able to figure that out. So how it gets there, I don't know. This one was a little bit fond for me, going back to my misspent youth. It's a banana seat, all the rage for 8-year-olds. We actually found a crawfish living in this when we found it. This is a really old shoe, and it just really talks to you. Man, you know, I wouldn't want to try to date it, but if you told me it was from the 20s, I'd believe you. Right? Here's a pair of dentures, believe it or not. Some people find it gross, but my guess on this is that it got accidentally flushed down the toilet. So unfortunately, the way that Hamilton's sewer system works is that for the lower part of the city of Hamilton, it's combined sewers, so storm and sanitary come together, and it all goes down for treatment, which sounds wonderful, except when it rains a lot, in which case the whole thing gets overwhelmed. Hamilton is very progressive, has wonderful combined sewer overflow tanks, but they don't work 100% of the time, and so we think that came out of accidentally went into the toilet and somebody didn't realize it or wasn't interested in going after it once it did. This is an old piece of enamelware. These two pieces we found in the same place. It was an old dump in Dundas. We found a lot of glass there. We had somebody at a festival who was just in love with this piece and just wanted to have it, and when I said no, she was very upset with me. So we don't always make friends. This one would be sort of like snow tires for a horse. These big cleats on it would work in the ice. And I have no way of knowing how old this is. And the drum we thought was interesting. You know, some sort of old industrial wheel. We can tell that this is an old piece from some sort of pressure vessel. These are rivets. This is what they did before they had welding. So this means that this is quite old. Again, I'd probably put it sort of before the 20s or the 30s. This is a maritime rescue beacon. I can understand how you would find something like this in Hamilton Harbor, but not necessarily in a creek. So lots of mysteries here. This is a old typewriter. I was asked by a 10-year-old at a festival why somebody would throw a perfectly good typewriter into the creek, and I said writer's block. Lots of toys and things that we find. A drone that got away from somebody. This is quite popular. This is the saucer section from the USS Enterprise, the one in Next Generation. You can tell I'm a bit of a Star Trek geek. Here are some car things. The emblems seem to be coming off of Volkswagens a lot. This license plate is for 1968. This one, I couldn't even hazard a guess. I can't see a date on it, but it really looks quite old. We find so many car parts and such a differing array of car parts that I'm threatening to post a picture of them on an album on our Facebook page, calling it, "Do we have enough to build a car yet?" You know, perhaps one of the most beautiful pieces. We're gonna have this hanging up in our wall. This is an old automobile wheel, wooden spokes, and the creek has carved it into this art piece. You can see this spoke has survived the best. We know it's from a car, this metal hub. They tell us at the Dundas Museum that would have been used for braking against. So just a real interesting piece. This is a skateboard. Skateboard aficionados go crazy over this when they see it at the festival. I had one guy who seemed to know what he was talking about, who claimed that it was from, he dated it to 1965 based on the trucks and based on the clay wheels and that sort of stuff. So, and again, the river gives it its own sort of patina. This is a industrial cord. We pulled 1,200 pounds of this out of Spencer Creek, and it formed its own island. My best guess is that 30 years ago, some naughty boys got a hold of a whole bunch of this stuff and rolled it down a ravine side to see it splash, and it spent the last 30 years unraveling to an unholy havoc. The exciting thing about this would be my favorite piece, is that Thijs Thijsmeyer from the RBG volunteers with us sometimes, and he went back to this spot the following spring and found a little minnow called a spot-tailed shiner, and he estimated that he saw 250,000 of them spawning, and they wouldn't have been able to spawn unless we had gotten that out. So, somebody who was very happy to take off their leg cast and, you know, euphorically threw it into the ravine. I think this might well be Aladdin's lamp, so we might be able to, let's check. No, not working. This was a classic, a bowling ball. We thought we could put it in somebody's garden and have little flowers grow out of it. This is a bolt, which means an arrow from a crossbow. This is rather dark. This means that somebody has been hunting. This is found in the Ancaster Creek area, and there is no hunting within everywhere except the most rural areas of the Sea of Hamilton. So that means there were some nefarious activities going on, unfortunately. Whoops. Okay. This piece is a truck wheel, and it's really interesting to me because these spokes are made of metal, and this is essentially a replica of a wooden spoked wheel, which is what would have been used on very early trucks. And when they made the transition to metal, for a very short period of time, this was the concept, just to replicate it in metal. But metal is different than wood, and you know, they found that they could spin it into a dish, and that made a much lighter and a much stronger hub. So this is wrong idea for metal, but you can just see the transition from the wooden spokes. Over here we have some things that really quickly help us date what we're doing. So this is a stubby beer bottle. This is what I grew up on. Well, I didn't grow up on it, but certainly in my university days, I was familiar with these. And it's been 35 years since these were in mass circulation. So what this means is that when we find these, we know that that area has not been cleaned up in at least 35 years. Similarly, we could tell a similar story with these steel pop cans. So the aluminum pop cans do not rust in this way. So this is made of steel. Hamilton was the last community in Canada to give up steel pop cans for the obvious reason that we want to support our local steel industry. But again, 25 years since these have been in production, so that tells us that we're going into areas and cleaning up where nobody has ever gone before, or for a very long time.